In today's video, I'm going to show you the 9 steps that you can use to create passive income through real estate investing. This is going to be a powerful video, and we are going to deep dive every step of the way. This is the exact strategy that I've used to become financially free. So in today's video, we're going to help you bottle up all of your limiting beliefs, all of that sort of negative self-talk that keeps you from taking action. We're going to show you the snowball effect and how getting that one property and then the snowball effect will cascade into multiple properties. We're going to show you how there are no obstacles. Money is not an issue. That is a limiting belief, and we're going to show you how I did it. I had a foreclosure. I also had all of my assets frozen. I woke up one morning, my entire bank account was frozen because of a deficiency judgment against me because of a foreclosure. I had a 590 credit score. I had no money to work with. This is the exact strategy that I used to create passive income. So I want you to grab a pen, I want you to grab a pad of paper, and I want you to pause the video if you need to. We are going to deep dive every step of the way, and I'm going to show you specific houses, specific strategies, and exactly how I did it. You ready to dive in? Let's get to it. All right, before we dive into it, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, it's free. Just click the subscribe button right down there. We have tons of great videos and resources on how to become a buy and hold real estate investor. All right, break time for a subscribe. Here's a little music. Okay, break time is over. Let's get down to business. First, off the top here, I want to say that I am not a genius. I am exactly like you. I was in a position, maybe just like you, where I was frustrated that at the end of the month, I just simply didn't have any money left over. My wife and I would sit down and we were wondering how we were going to pay our mortgage. And there was actually a time, literally, when we had to go through the house and look at donating or books that we were going to sell just to make ends meet. And here I was. I thought I was making good money. I thought I was saving correctly, and I simply wasn't. And at the end of the month, we had nothing to show for all of the hard work that we put in for the month. So I'm just like you. I'm not a genius. I've simply followed a path that has been laid out by many, many smart real estate investors before me. Real estate investors that frankly didn't even go to college, that have created multi-millions in their wealth. This is the exact system that many of them used to get there. So what did I do? I took some of them out to lunch. I found out exactly how they did it. For instance, my friend Abe, who owns thousands of properties, he started with one property. And he explained to me the exact 9 steps that I'm going to teach you today in this video. And his snowball strategy for creating that in a matter of years. He did it in, I think, like 3.5 years. For me, I hit that financial freedom point in about 5 years. So you can do this too. Every month now, I have enough passive income coming in from real estate that I never have to work another day in my life. That is the power of passive income. And if a chump like me can do it, you can do it as well. So get rid of those limiting beliefs, pull them out of your brain, and if you're sitting back there for now and you've got your arms folded and you're saying, yeah, but this guy, he's doing it this way, I know there are better ways of doing it. Great, go out there and do them that other way. I buy single-family homes in real estate. That's how I've done it, single-family residences. Other people buy multi-million-dollar apartment complexes. That's not how I did it. I'm not an expert in that. I'll tell you how I did it, and if you'd like to learn, let's get to it. Some of your criticisms or objections are going to come right out right now. And I guarantee some of those objections and fears are going to be tied to money. You're going to be saying to yourself, I have no money, this guy has money, there's no way I'm going to be able to buy real estate with no money. First of all, I want you to get that out of your brain right now. Money is not an obstacle. Money is a manifestation. It is absolutely true. Again, I had a foreclosure. I had a 590 credit score. I had my entire bank account frozen because I was going through a deficiency judgment. Imagine that morning when I woke up and I saw negative numbers in my bank account and I couldn't even buy a sandwich. I freaked out and I took a deep breath and I said, you know what? I've hit rock bottom. There's nowhere to go but up from here. So if I can do it, you can do it. And besides that, if you're worried about money or you're thinking, I can't possibly get enough money to buy real estate, I've created a whole series of videos right here. You tap on this and it's a whole series of videos on obtaining private money. There is so much private money out there of people willing to lend you money to make your real estate transactions happen that I'll walk you through step by step in a series of videos on exactly how to obtain private money. It's the exact system that I've used to do it. And thousands of other people do the exact same thing. So please, please, please do not be scared about money in this entire system. Put that out of your brain for now, and let's get into some of the mechanics of how to do it. Okay, in just a moment here, we're going to go through the 9 steps, and we're really going to deep dive. And I'm talking get out a pad of paper and a pen, and we're going to go through each of the 9 steps. But first, I want to lay out what is passive income. You probably think you know what passive income is, but if you're watching this video, chances are you might not understand the mechanics of it. And frankly, the reason I'm so passionate about passive income is because our current system is broken. And there are 3 huge problems with our current system of wealth building in this country. And it all centers around the idea of the 401k. Okay? The 401k is okay, but it's actually pretty awful for building wealth. And I'll explain why. Number 1, the first huge problem is that it's incredibly complicated. That if you actually want to dive in and understand the mechanics and the fees that are associated with your 401k, it's actually really hard to figure out. It's not easy. And when you start to map it out and you start to understand it, it can become a little maddening. Why am I paying these fees? Why am I paying all of these structures? Who's benefiting? Your employer is ultimately benefiting from the funds that your employer chooses for you to use in your 401k plan. The second huge problem with our current structure around the 401k for wealth building is that it's limited. It has a limit to it. The federal government sets a limit to how much money you can put into your 401k plan in order to create wealth. Why? Why limit the amount that people can grow their wealth by? It's insane. So that's the second huge problem, that there is a limit to how much you can put in to grow your savings. And the third biggest problem with this entire system is frankly that it's encouraging you to grow your savings, not to create wealth. Let me explain that. The 401k and the idea of the wealth building around your 401k is that it's encouraging you to grow your savings. You're putting a little money into a savings account and then it's growing years so that years later you can take some of that money out. That's the opposite of what we're talking about here today in creating passive income. That we want to create wealth. We want to grow wealth now, today, so that every day I've got thousands of dollars coming in every month into my house. Why would I be focused on 40 years from now and a little bit of savings growing over 40 years? Makes no sense. So again, the 3 huge problems with the current state of affairs with wealth building. Number 1, it's complicated. It's hard to figure out, and they intentionally keep it complicated so that you can't figure it out. Now, there are going to be people that are going to watch this video and say, who might be financial advisors and might get upset with me, and that's fine. I totally appreciate that. But I know many, many financial advisors who have told me the exact same thing, who now invest in real estate. They were a product of the stock market. They will sit down at lunch with me and they'll say, Clayton, it's exactly true. It's complicated on purpose. All you need to do is watch the movie The Big Short to understand how complicated it is and how they don't want the average person to understand what's actually in their 401k. Number 2, there is a limit by the federal government on how much you can actually contribute and grow for your savings that you can pull out when you're 59 and a half years old. But that's doing nothing for number 3, which is we want to create wealth today, not when we're 59 and a half years old, creating wealth today. So the current system is broken, and they don't encourage you to build wealth today. So the bottom line is passive income creates wealth for you today, not some hypothetical day in the future 40 years from now. You know, the average 401k in this country at retirement is only about $70,000. That's the truth. That's a fact. That the average 401k upon retirement is only about $70,000. Can you live on $70,000? Well, I mean, if you're retiring at 60, can you live on it for the next 20 years? No way. No way. That is insanity. So Passive income allows you to create wealth today so that your money is working for you now and you can enjoy your life. You can go take trips, you can spend more time with the family, you can not commute to work 2 hours back and forth each way. You can spend more time living today and enjoying that wealth. So that is passive income. Okay, now I want to take you through the exact strategy that I've used to buy my first rental property and to achieve financial freedom. Remember, it all started with one property, and then I was able to cascade that down to create passive income and financial freedom. I'm going to walk through, I'm just going to summarize now, just the 9 steps first, and then don't worry, we're going to deep dive each one of them. And each one of them might take us like 10 minutes to get through or 5 minutes to get through. But I just want to summarize them first. This is the exact strategy that I've used to create passive income and wealth. And my strategy includes single family homes. I buy 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, single family homes in hardworking, blue-collar neighborhoods. Okay? I like C neighborhoods, and don't worry, I've got a card right here in this video. You can click on it and it explains exactly what an A, B, and C neighborhood is, so you can go back and watch that a little bit later. Those are the types of properties I buy. I like single family homes because I believe that the tenant really feels like it's their home and they want to stay for a long time. They've got their own driveway, they have a backyard. It's their house. They come home at the end of the day, they sit down with a glass of wine with their spouse, their friend, their family, and it's their home. I've got leases on some of my properties upwards of 5 years where the tenant wants to stay for 5 years because they love the house. That is what I love to buy. Those are the types of properties that I go after. That is my bread and butter, and that's what I'm going to walk you through today. If you've got another strategy that you like I mentioned, you want to buy 200-unit apartment complexes, great. The same strategy can apply for that as well. Another reason that I love single-family homes, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, is that they're not building them anymore. Again, I've got another great video here that explains why millennials aren't buying real estate. And therefore, these homes, millennials are frankly skipping these 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses, these starter homes, and they're waiting about 10 years to get married, and they're jumping right into the 4- and 5-bedroom houses. Well, that's great for me. So that means that builders aren't building the 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses anymore and the 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses anymore. But you know what? There are a lot of people that want to rent them because they're single or they're, single mom, they've got 2 kids. They're perfect for that. So those are the types of properties I go after because, first of all, people aren't buying them and I can buy them and people want to rent them. So that's a perfect win-win scenario for the types of properties that I like to buy to create passive income. All right, here are the 9 steps that I use to create passive income and financial freedom. Step 1, we simply find a house. For me, my first house that I purchased was in a little suburb of Detroit, outside of the city limits, in a little nice suburb about 25 minutes away, and it was a single family home in Michigan. So number 1, we have to find a house. Number 2 in our list, we have to find and hire a contractor, someone that's going to go to the property and give you an estimate of the repairs on the property. Step 3 on this pretty simple list is to get an inspection on the property so that you can match that up with what the contractor found or what they estimated. So get an inspection, usually a few $100s, and you want to match the 2 of them to see what types of repairs you really need to do and what types of repairs you kind of need to skip because it's a waste of money on a rental property. Number 4 on my list, you want to make sure all of your numbers are in alignment so that when you add up all of your repairs plus your purchase on the property, you want to make sure that you are going to come out below market value. So that if the house is worth $50,000 from a retail buyer, you want to be under that amount so that you have a little bit of equity in your rental property. A little bit of equity is great. You don't want to be over market value because then why didn't you just call up a realtor and buy the house that way? Number 5 is that you want to use your own cash to buy the property or get financing from either a private lender or a conventional loan to buy the rental property. It's that simple. Use your own cash or get financing and you're going to buy the house. Number 6 is you want to hire a property management team to take care of the property. Usually they'll charge between 6 and 12% a month from your monthly rent Find a reputable property management team that is going to be hands-on and is going to be there for the duration. And they are going to then, which is the next step in this list, number 7, of course, renting out the property and making sure that you have cash flow coming in every month. And number 8 is the snowball effect. This is where you want to take the money out of that property and you want to use that money, that equity that you just used on that house, to buy your second, third, and fourth property. So you're going to take that money out. And then finally, number 9 is rinse and repeat. The final step is number 9, rinse and repeat. You're going to do it all over again. Well, there you go. That's the main summary of the 9 steps. Now, we are going to deep dive each of these steps. Again, I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and feel free to pause the video, rewind the video. That's the power of video, so you can keep and make sure you have every step. And by the way, if you have any further questions as you're going through this video, please leave them in the comment thread below, and I will be happy to jump in and answer them if there's anything that you need a little bit more clarification on. But again, we are now about to deep dive each one of these steps. Let's go. Okay, now that we've had a little summary of the 9 steps, let's deep dive each of these individual steps. Number 1, finding a house. How do you find a house? Could be the most difficult piece of this entire puzzle, but it doesn't have to be. There are a number of obvious things we want to do to find a house, right? We can work with a realtor. We could work with a turnkey provider like the company that I run. You could find for sale by owner houses. You could drive around and look for sale by owner signs in the yard. You could call houses that are available on Craigslist.com. There are a number of different ways to find houses, but first I want to set the stage for you on where to begin to look for houses. Now, I have a whole video on my theory on why the best rental properties are not in your backyard. So you can click on this video and watch that. But the short example of that is that most value, we want to go after a high return on investment. So the best rental properties are simply not going to be probably where you live. For instance, I live in the state of New Jersey. There is zero chance that I'm going to find a rental property in the state of New Jersey that is going to be around $50,000, $60,000. No way that's going to happen. It's going to cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a single family home in the state of New Jersey. Well, there's just no way I'm going to buy that house. It's not going to give me the return on investment that I want. We'll go through those numbers a little bit later in this video. But for now, you must understand that those best rental properties are going to be in areas like the Midwest, or areas where you're going to find a really high return on investment and a low barrier to entry on your price. So my rule of thumb is, on a single family home, you do not want to spend more than $150,000. $150,000 is really going to be the cutoff for your purchasing. Here's why. With a $150,000 house, anything above that, the value of the rent is not going to keep up with the value of the house. So again, if suddenly the house was worth, if I spent $200,000, the rent is not going to jump up a proportional amount to match that new price. If I buy it for $300,000, my rent is not going to jump up another $1,000 to keep up with that cost. At one point, around the $150,000 mark, that is when the rent stops keeping up with the value of the house. So I'd like to buy houses that are under $150,000. And my bread and butter houses are right around the $40,000, $50,000 range. Those are the types of houses that I love to buy. So in my example here, I want to start with finding a house by using a realtor, right? That's the most common way that you're going to find a house. Now, if you live in a place like New Jersey or New York or California or Miami, you're not going to want to call a realtor in those areas. You're going to want to identify the parts of the country that you would like to purchase a property. So for me, I bought my first rental property in the state of Michigan. Now, how did I do it? Well, I simply went online and just did a little research and found a realtor in that particular area that I wanted to invest. So my first property was outside of Detroit. I called a local realtor who worked on distressed properties. These were homes that needed rehab. These were homes that needed help. And I had a conversation with that person. And at the time, I really didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew that I wanted to find a house that was below market value, that then I could do a little bit of rehab on it and then still be under the market value when I was done, and get a good bang for my buck on my return on investment, making sure that my rent was going to get me a very high ROI. And again, we're going to go through these numbers on how to figure out ROI and the numbers that I specifically look for a little bit later in this video. But for now, I call up a realtor and just have a dialogue with that person. Just get to know them and tell them what you're interested in. And you're looking for single family homes, and that's exactly what I said. I was more interested in 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses or 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. That's what I like. That's what I was most comfortable starting with. And he said, great. And his name was Mike, and he sent me a couple of properties to look at. And I went through and I considered a few of them, and he made suggestions on ones. He had a chance to walk through those properties and take pictures, and we went back and forth on this whole thing. But the bottom line is I was able to look at these pictures, look at these numbers, and I finally made a determination. I said, great, I think that's the house that I want. That's the first property that I want to pick up. Now, what are the next steps? So I called up a realtor who understood the value of rental properties. He himself owned some rental properties. He was able to find me a great property that needed some work. He was able to look at it and assess how much work it probably needed, but that's just one metric, right? I want to use an inspector and I want to use a contractor to get real numbers, but he was able to give me a ballpark idea. So on my first property, I was able to acquire it for around $27,000, I think was the all-in, or maybe $28,000 with closing costs. And we'll take a look. Here is the property that I was able to find. It was a great little single family on a corner. So it had actually a pretty nice sizable yard to it. And it was in a 1950s neighborhood, blue-collar, hardworking neighborhood. And it had a big backyard. The trees needed to be trimmed back. We needed to do some roof repair. On the surface, when you looked at it, obviously the hardwood floors needed to be fixed up. The kitchen cabinets needed to be redone. Drywall, windows needed to be put in. There was a lot of work that needed to be done on this property, but I knew that if I could get one property well below market value, and then if I could add value in it by doing a rehab, then I was coming out on top. That is really the key to this whole strategy. Okay, so I found the house. It wasn't that hard. The only problem with working with realtors, and they're great, my father's a realtor, is that you're probably not going to get a consistent deal flow on a regular basis. And that's where maybe working with a turnkey provider or doing some direct marketing yourself and able to find properties on a regular basis will really come into play. But for now, kind of getting that first property under your belt, that was a great way for me to get started and to take action, was just get out there. Just do it. Just get out there and take action, calling a realtor and doing it. I know that if I did it through other means, I probably would have got the house for cheaper. I probably would have saved some money here and there. But at the end of the day, I took action. All right, the second step in this process, let's deep dive this now, which is to hire a contractor. So that hiring of the contractor is very important. When you say to yourself, how do I do that? I'm living 1,000 miles away from this house. How am I going to hire a contractor? What do I even look for? Well, you really want to get a number of estimates on your property. So you do not want to just rely on one contractor if you're thinking about hiring someone for the first time. So what you want to do is you want to jump on Craigslist. It's a simple tool. If you just go to Craigslist and you go to the job opportunities page, you'll find contractors who are looking for work. And scroll down and you'll notice that almost all of these contractors are going to offer free estimates. Free estimates. Now, you don't want to be abusive of this, right? It's time, so it takes them time to come out to walk through the property, and then they have to type up a full estimate to give to you. So you do want to be respectful of these contractors and not take advantage of them. The idea is that you would like to work with one of them. So I would choose 3 if you can. Try to choose 3 different contractors who are able to offer free estimates on your house that you're considering purchasing. Get and call them up, let them know what you'd like to do with the house, that you're buying this as a rental investment. This is not going to be a property that you personally are going to live in, and tell them that you do not want to over upgrade this house for the neighborhood. That means, I didn't over upgrade my house for the neighborhood. I put in Formica countertops, I put in the base grade cabinets. They look great. They're like, cherry cabinets, etc., from Lowe's or Home Depot. I'm not spending 3 times that amount because I personally am going to live there. I'm also not going to go crazy with the carpeting. I'm going to get a nice base grade carpeting that looks great, but can handle a lot of traffic, and that can be cleaned pretty easily on a tenant turnover a few years from now. Let the contractor know that you don't want to put in granite countertops, you don't want to put in, a Nest learning thermostat, you don't want to put on a lot of crazy bells and whistles. You want to make the house great for a tenant, but you don't want to over improve the house where you're spending more money than you need to because you're personally not going to live there. If you ever go into an apartment building or an apartment complex, you're going to notice. The thermostats are the base grade white thermostats. You've got your normal, sort of base grade carpeting. You have your basic amenities in the kitchen. You have your basic countertops. You're not going crazy. I've lived in plenty of apartments where I felt great living there. It was clean, felt brand new, paint, nice carpet, great bathroom. But that vanity in the bathroom was not going into the Taj Mahal or something like that. It was a base grade vanity. I was able to put things underneath a sink, in the cabinet doors. Maybe there's a medicine cabinet. But again, it's perfect for a tenant. It's not something that you're going to live in. So make sure you communicate that to the contractor and let them know that they have competition. This is also important. Let them know that you're gathering estimates from a couple of different contractors. This will make sure that they are giving you an honest assessment in their numbers and letting you know how much the labor is going to cost, how much the materials are going to cost, and then they're not going to try to overinflate their numbers to try to take advantage of you. Especially if you tell them that you're 1,000 miles away. You want to explain to them that, hey, I would like to build a long-term relationship with you and do multiple houses. That's what we do, right? So on the properties we buy, we have a team in place, and they know that they're not going to rip us off. We're going to have a long-term working relationship because we're going to do a lot of houses over many years. So it behooves them to not drive up their numbers on paper. But again, let them know that you have some competition. Yes, John, I'm going to be checking in with 2 other contractors. We're going to be getting some different estimates here, but I would love to see how much it would cost you to do this job. And I want you to see what's wrong with the house. You tell me what you think this house needs. Now, make sure you talk with your realtor. Have a lockbox on the house, or hopefully there's a lockbox available that the realtor can meet with the contractor, go out to the house and let them do their thing. Let them walk through with their clipboard and their pen and draw everything up. Then, of course, they can come back to you later with their estimate of repairs on the house. We call this a scope of work, an SOW, a scope of work. So ask them for their scope of work and then compare that with your other 2 estimates from your other contractors. Now, it's not, to me, I've done this a lot. I don't take the cheapest and I don't take the most expensive. I like taking the guy in the middle. I don't want cheap work on my rental properties, but I also don't want to pay the most. So a nice happy medium, and if the numbers make sense for you, which we'll go over in just a moment, then that's the guy I go with. And I want to know the time that it's going to take to complete this rehab and the amount of overages. So with our customers at Morris Invest, if we go over on our rehab, we eat that cost. Ask that contractor, so John, what happens if you start pulling out drywall or you start pulling out things that need repair and suddenly you discover some things that you didn't anticipate by going through in your inspection when you were giving me my scope of work? What's going to happen? Am I going to be on the hook for that? So you need to really have those conversations up front with your contractors to find out exactly who's going to foot the bill for those things. Are you going to split it 50-50, or how is that going to be arranged? You don't want to find big surprises that are going to cost you $3,000, $4,000 that you did not anticipate. Okay, step 3 in this process, let's deep dive the inspection process. Now, we found the house, we have the contractor who's giving us a scope of work on the property. Now, we also want to get our own inspection. So I do that on all of our houses. We get an inspection. We also have our contractors walk the property. And guess what? We marry the 2 of them. So I look at the inspection report from a licensed inspector, and I get the scope of work from my contractor, and we marry the 2 of them. So why is that important? My little hand gestures here. Well, because in an inspection report, you're going to have structural issues, safety concerns that are the most important things, right? You may have a foundation crack. Okay, so what do we need to do there? Some hydraulic cement will fix it. If not, maybe carbon fiber stripping to actually keep it intact. That can either be a few $100 job or it can be a few $1,000 job. So we need to know the safety concerns, right? So safety is important in the house. And on an inspection report, you'll see those the safety reports and those major sort of structural things we want to make sure are not a problem. And then, of course, the cosmetic stuff, right? Maybe there's an outlet that needs fixing, an electrical outlet, or there's some update. But as long as the major electrical, plumbing, foundation things are taken care of, then the other stuff can really be considered cosmetic. Okay, you're missing a few shingles on the roof, but the overall roof health is 20 years left on that roof. You'd be crazy to replace the whole roof. So if in a storm a few shingles blew off or there was some issue, great, replace those 5 shingles in your fix. Don't put a whole new roof on the property. So inspection reports can be scary. They can be thick, they can be intimidating. In fact, I've got one right here, let me grab it for you. So this was the inspection report on my very first property in Michigan. Look how scary this is. It's like, I don't know, 50 pages. But the bottom line is I hardly had to do any of this. Most of this stuff was simply cosmetic stuff. Some of the things that I had to take care of, though, had to do with some of the paneling. I had some water in the basement that I had to take care of with a little bit of sealant. But most of it I didn't have to do. So yes, you're going to get an inspection report back, and it's probably going to be thick and intimidating. But that's what an inspector is paid to do. But you, as a landlord, need to realize that you don't need to do almost all of this. You need to do the stuff that turns it into a great rental property and addresses all of those major sort of structural and safety concerns. Once you have that inspection report, that is when we're going to marry the two of them, right? So we have that scope of work that we got over here from our contractor or our series of contractors, and then we've got our inspection report over here that we got from a licensed inspector. Now, we're going to marry the two of them together. And again, we don't need to go through and do everything in the inspection report. That's what an inspector is paid to do, is to find all of those little nitpicky things, right? So there might be a door latch that's a little loose, okay? There might be a window that's broken. We're gonna fix that. There might be a few shingles missing from the roof, but the rest of the roof is in great condition and has another 20 years of life on it. Maybe a storm came through and 5 shingles blew off. Oh no, the whole roof is not bad, just those 5 shingles. Let's fix 5 shingles, which should be a few dollars. So you need to kind of go through that thing with a fine-tooth comb and really decide what makes sense to you. But then we're gonna marry the two of those things together. And when we marry the two of those things together, we want to make sure that it lines up nicely and you have an agreement with your contractor on what you want to do. So again, let me go over the types of repairs that I like to do, so when I marry the two of them, they all make sense. I want a roof that's in good condition. So now if my inspector and my contractor tell me that we have another 20 years of life left on the roof, or even another 15 years, or maybe even 10 years of life left on the roof, I'm probably not going to spend any money on fixing your roof right now, will I? No. Windows, if I need window repair, great. I'm going to put in brand new windows likely where they need to be addressed. If the electrical is old, I'm going to put in new electrical and update the electrical wiring. So if there's that old knob and tube wiring in the house, that is getting ripped out, and I'm going to put in brand new electrical wiring in the house. Now, I have a whole video on electricity and why I decide to put in 200 amp versus 100 amp panels in some of my houses. You can click on that video here and watch that later. But most of the time, if I've got a furnace that's going to be running on electric, if I've got a water heater that's going to be running on electric, then I'm going to put in a 200 amp electrical panel in the house so that everything in the house can run off of electricity. But if I'm going to be putting in a brand new furnace, if the furnace needs updating, and if it's a gas furnace, then I don't need probably to do a 200 amp electrical service, because if it's powered by gas, it's just overkill. So again, let me go back over these again. A roof, I want to make sure is in great condition. My windows, I want to put in electrical, make sure that that is top notch. I also want to make sure that my plumbing is up to par. So we'll rip out old galvanized pipe, old PVC pipe, and I'll put in new PEX plumbing. Once again, I've got a whole video on the plumbing that I do. You can click here and watch that, as well. We've got lots of videos as you're learning. So we'll put in new PEX plumbing. We'll put in a new furnace. We'll put in a new water heater. Even if the furnace is just a few years old, typically I'm going to update my furnace, and typically I'm going to update the water heater. So now I've got those major things taken care of in the house. If the inspection report tells me that I've got a foundation problem, I want to know, again, is it just a crack that can be fixed with some hydraulic cement and it's not a big deal? A 100-year-old house has a slight crack. That house is going to be there for another 100 years and I'm not going to worry about it. However, if there's a major structural problem, then I'm not going to buy the house. I'm not going to spend an additional $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to put in carbon fiber stripping and do something crazy to my foundation of this house. That's just not something I'm going to spend money on. If the inspection report finds that there's a little bit of termite damage, maybe in an old floor joist or an old beam or something like that, but the termites are long since gone, then I'll replace that beam. But if the whole house looks like it's about to fall down because of termite damage, again, I'm going to not buy that house. Those are the two major things that I'm going to look at when I'm buying a house. Number one, is there major termite damage? Is there a major foundational problem in the house? Like the whole house is shifted off cinder blocks, or it looks, it's about to fall over. I'm not going to buy the house. That's a ridiculous cost when there's so many other fish in the sea. But of course, if it needs a new roof, I'll buy the house. If it needs new windows, I'll buy the house. Needs new furnace, I'll buy the house. If it needs a new water heater, I'll buy the house. If it needs new plumbing, I'll buy the house. If it needs new electrical, I'll buy the house. So all of those things don't concern me. I've got a great team that will take care of that, and any great contracting team should also be able to take care of those issues. Those are the major concerns that I want to look at when I'm marrying the two, the inspection report and the scope of work. And then, of course, we're always going to do paint, carpet, drywall touch-up. We're going to put in probably a new vanity in the bathroom. We're going to do new flooring, new vinyl flooring typically. We're going to make sure that the tub is in great condition, and we'll probably put in, we'll reglaze the tub or put in a new tub if it's in bad condition. We'll put in new cabinets in the kitchen. We'll put in new flooring in the kitchen. And again, then we'll cut back some tree branches and make the yard look good with landscaping. And that's really it. I mean, with those touch-ups, the same paint, carpet, fixing updating those major things, you've got a rock-solid rental property that's going to last you for 10, 15 years before you're going to need to worry about any kind of repairs at all. And I want you to remember something. Your furnace and your water heater, those typically will have a 10-year manufacturer's warranty on them. So you're not really going to have to worry about repairs. If you've taken care of the electrical, you've taken care of the plumbing, the roof is in great shape, and your windows are up to looking fantastic, and you've done new electrical and new plumbing, what repairs are you going to have? The houses that I like to buy do not have central air, mostly, so we don't have to worry about an HVAC system or the central air. If a tenant wants to put in a window unit, great, it's up to the tenant. But there's not a lot of other moving parts in this house. And you can see how I almost never have to do repairs on my house, ever. I had one about 2 years ago where I had a toilet that got clogged, and there was a sewer line that needed to be snaked. So we called in the plumber, and I think it was like $175 later after they snaked the whole line and made sure it was all clear. Then we were good to go. But other than that, I don't have major repairs to worry about. Now in 10, 15 years, I'm going to replace the furnace, I'm going to replace the water heater, and we're going to look at the life of the other things in the property. We're going to check everything out, and then we'll make a decision at that time to upgrade the roof, etc. So there you go. That's a basic overview of the types of things that I like to rehab in a property. That way I get a great property, my tenants love it, but I'm not killing myself in the wallet to go crazy with all kinds of additional updates for that inspection report. All right, number 4, we want to add up all of our numbers. We want to get it all down on paper, and we want to see it looking at our ROI using an ROI calculator. So you can see, first of all, what is the return on investment going to look like when I'm done with all of these repairs, and what is the after repair value of this house going to be. Okay, so adding up all of your numbers, what does that look like? Well, number 1, we want to go through ROI first, okay? ROI first. That's the whole reason we are doing this, is return on investment, ROI. That's it. That's the whole focus of buying rental properties. And if the numbers don't add up, then you shouldn't be buying the house. Just because perhaps you fell in love with this adorable little bungalow, that doesn't matter. If the numbers don't work, then you shouldn't be buying the house. So what is return on investment? What is ROI? I'm going to give you the formula that we use internally to figure out if a house is worth my wife and I buying it.
So today we're going to talk about ROI using the cash on cash formula. Cash on cash just means how much cash is coming in and how much cash went out. So if you have $40,000 in the bank, you're buying a $40,000 house with cash. What is the return that you could expect to get on that $40,000? Now, we can do a whole separate video on mortgages and debt service. In fact, we have other videos specifically on how to figure out the debt service on a property if you're using a mortgage. But for this, we are specifically using cash on cash to make the formulas easier for you. Okay, so let's dive in. So let's say we're using a $40,000 house. So $40,000 is going to be the cost of our 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. These are the typical kinds of properties that I buy and renovate. And it's going to cash flow, let's make it nice round numbers, $700 a month. So $700 a month from a tenant. It's going to cash flow, and that's it. Okay, great. So here's how we figure out ROI. We're going to take that $700 a month, and we're going to multiply that times 12. That's going to give us our annual rent. So 700 times 12 gives us $8,400. Now that is the gross rent for the year. Now we are going to divide this number by the all-in cost of the house, which is $40,000. So we're going to divide $8,400 by 40,000. By 40,000. And that's going to give us a 21% gross ROI, which is fantastic, right? But that's gross, remember? So that's the gross ROI of 21%. Now, with all of our properties, I always am super conservative in my formula for figuring out return on investment because I want to take out 40% for vacancy, repairs, expenses, all of those things, taxes, get thrown into this 40%. But because, remember, I'm rehabbing the house, so I don't have to worry about expenses. I'm not going to worry about vacancies because I'm filling it with a tenant with my property management team right away. So this 40% doesn't really come into effect. So when at the end of the year, my wife and I like to look at our statements, we end up usually being right here, right around this 21% gross. But I always want to be super conservative when I'm buying a house, so I always want to figure this 40%. How do we figure 40%, and how do we get to our number? Let's go back to the whiteboard. So $40,000 is our house, and it's $700 a month for rent. So I'm going to take that $700 again, multiply it times 12, is going to give us the same number, $8,400. But now I'm going to multiply this number times 0.6. Now, I get so many emails from people that say, wait a minute, wouldn't you multiply it times 0.4? No. I want to take out 40%. 100 minus 40 is 60. So I'm going to multiply this times 0.6. So 8,400 times 0.6 gives me $5,040. That's my net cash flow from my tenants this month, or from this year. So it started with that. To be super conservative, I took out 40%, which is how you do it right here, and I'm left with this for the year. Now I divide this by the $40,000 number. Divided by that gives me a net cash flow of 0.12, which is 12. That is a 12% return on my investment. That is a net. That is a ridiculously high ROI. That is the number that I go for on every one of my properties, is a net ROI between 10 and 12%. Net, not gross, not gross, net. I hope that makes sense. That is how you figure out ROI. Very, very simple. And remember, in that 40% number, we're including, the taxes. We're including the vacancy number, right? We're including our expenses and repairs. And all of that gets rolled into that 40% for me. So it keeps it very, very simple, and it's a quick and dirty way for you to find out, especially in a single family house or a duplex or a triplex or a four family. When you start getting into commercial properties, you're going to be looking at other things you're going to have to consider. But for residential real estate, doing those single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, or quadplexes, this is how we figure out ROI.
That is how we figure our overall numbers. Again, we want to use the contractor's numbers, how much they're quoting us as the estimate of repairs and their scope of work, and the purchase price of that house. Combine that as your all-in cost of the house. Again, your ROI number, when you're all done with this, should be between 10 and 12% return. Now, that is the type of return I go for. There are people in New Jersey where I live that will do rehabs and look for, their goal is to try to get to like an 8% return. They're hoping for an 8% return. I won't even touch a house unless I can get a minimum 10% conservative net return on my investment. That's the power of passive income, folks. That's the power of rental real estate. These deals are out there. That's what I do all day long. So that should be encouraging. Again, so that's how we're going to add up all of our numbers and make sure that we're on track. Again, if you're not at 10 to 12%, why are you going to buy that house? There are too many fish in the sea for you to get a low return on your investment. If you add up all your numbers and you're hitting an 8%, 7%, 6%, I'm sorry, this house isn't for you. Or maybe you could go back to your contractor and say, hey, are you sure these numbers are right? Are you sure that we need to do all this extra work? Are you sure this is what it's going to cost us to do these things? And if you can't get any wiggle room, then I would walk away from that house. I would not buy it. Don't get hung up and fall in love with real estate. Focus on return on investment. All right, step 5. We are here. We're almost to the finish line. Step 5 is now we've got to buy that house. We figured out our numbers. We see that our numbers look good. Now we've got to buy the house. Now, you've got to make an offer. You've got to put in your money and start getting this house closed so you can start the rehab process. All right, how do you buy the house? There are a number of ways. I'm going to throw them up here on the screen, the number of different ways that you can acquire this house. The way that I mostly acquire my houses is with cash, just cash on hand. Now, cash on hand can be a number of different sources, right? You've got cash in your savings account. You've got a 401k plan, okay, that you're able to borrow from. Most people don't even know that you can borrow from your 401k. I'm not talking about withdrawing from your 401k. That's where you get penalties and fees. I'm talking about borrowing from your 401k. And again, I've got a whole video that walks you through how to do it. Or maybe you've got an IRA, okay? You've got some money in an IRA. You've got $50,000 sitting in an IRA. You might be able to use, maybe you have a self-directed IRA. Maybe you have a military retirement account. A lot of our investors that we work with have a military retirement account that they can borrow from. Maybe you've got another retirement vehicle. Maybe it is some sort of a life plan or something. I've seen it done so many different ways. And one of my favorite ways is that you have a home equity line of credit on your primary residence. And maybe you've got $50,000, $100,000 from a home equity line of credit that you can use to buy a rental property. That's a strategy that my wife and I use, and that is in fact our main strategy. We use our home equity line of credit to buy more rental properties than any other strategy because it's such an amazing low-cost way of doing it, and the interest that you're going to pay on that loan during the HELOC is simple interest. And I've got a great strategy where if you use a home equity line of credit to buy your rental properties, if you make small payments every month, multiple times a month, you almost pay zero in interest, almost nothing in interest payments because you're attacking it multiple times a month. It's a killer strategy. So again, maybe you're using a home equity line of credit, also known as a HELOC. Maybe you're using conventional financing, like you actually want to work with a local bank to get financing where you'll have to put about 25% down out of your own pocket. Maybe you're using private financing. What is private financing? Again, private financing could be Uncle John, who's got $300,000 and he's going to let you buy 6 houses. Great. You construct a note, you construct a mortgage note with John, and you borrow the money for a certain percentage. Great. Or maybe you use an institutional private lender. What's an institutional private lender? It's kind of like John, but with more rules. And they're actually usually a hedge fund that is actually just lending money out, and they have specific terms. Some of them won't let you buy houses that are valued less than or purchase prices less than $45,000. Some won't let you do it below $70,000. So you need to kind of pick and choose. But my point is, there's so many different ways to acquire rental properties. And again, don't be scared of money. This might be your biggest hang-up, and it should not be. Again, it shouldn't be. I've got a whole series of videos here, a playlist of videos that you can watch that walks you through private money, how to get private money, the exact strategy that I've used. Don't be scared of it. It'll walk you through step by step how to put together your one sheet, how to present this to a private lender. It's a one-page thing that you show them. Lets them know exactly the type of house you're going to buy, exactly where it's located, and the type of returns that you can expect on this house, and how to present it to that private lender. I walk you through all of those steps if you don't have any money on hand. But again, money, it really is a mental thing. Again, I went through a foreclosure. I had a below 600 credit score. I had all of my assets frozen, all of my bank accounts frozen. I couldn't even buy a sandwich or a cup of coffee. If I can do it, you can do it. I don't want any excuses when it comes to getting private money. Your excuses are your own, and they are a limitation of your laziness. That's a fact. If you want to cry about it, then this isn't for you. You can do it. If you really want to build legacy wealth and passive income in a few short years, you can do it, even if you have no money. I guarantee you can do it. There you go. Those are some of the basic ways that you can acquire rental properties with different forms of cash. You can also finally even do an equity split, an equity partnership with somebody who's looking to go and has the cash. You found the deal. You don't have any cash, and you're going to give a percentage of the deal and the returns to that lender, that friend that is ponying up the money. So there are all kinds of different ways to structure how you're going to actually purchase this property. But the bottom line is, now's the time. You're buying the house. All right, number 6 on our list is the property management piece of this whole big puzzle. Now, this is an incredibly important part of this process. To hire the right property management company can be the difference between receiving rent checks and having a vacant house. Literally, the house can be vacant for too long, or you could have cash flow coming in, creating that passive income that we're talking about. Now, let me just tell you about the types of property management companies that I hire and that I work with. I have a bunch that I work with across the country, and these are the things that I ask for and look for with my property management team. Number 1, I want you to remove from your brain the idea that you are going to manage properties yourself. You're not going to do it. I want you to repeat after me. I am not going to manage properties myself. There's the tendency, especially if you're doing properties in your own backyard, to think that it's easy and that I'm just a few miles down the road and I'm going to show tenants these properties and I'm going to manage it myself and I'm going to save a little bit of money. No, don't do it. The point is that we're actually building into our whole formula, our ROI formula, our return on investment formula. We're building in property management costs into that formula. So it is a sunk cost. I plan on paying it, and I love to pay it. I pay 10% a month in some of my markets. I pay 8% a month in some of my other markets. And you might find that you might pay between 8 and 12%. It really just depends. You might get lucky and pay 7%. It's really going to depend on how populous the area is, how much competition there is. But a good rule of thumb is about 10% a month of your monthly rent. Now, let's be clear. You're not going to pay anything unless the property's rented. So if you are renting it for $700 a month and you pay 10%, then that $70 every month is going to come off of your statement, and you're going to receive the balance of rent every month in the mail. So again, that's a sunk cost. It's part of the ROI formula. So don't think you're going to save a few bucks by trying to manage it yourself. The problem is that you think it's going to be easy for one property. Oh, I have one property. I can manage it myself. But I want you to think in terms of having 10 properties or 20 properties. I want you to think of where you will be, not where you currently are. Now picture yourself managing 10 properties. Now picture yourself managing 20 properties. That's frightening. That's not a business I ever want to be in. Let's just run down some of their job duties. They're going to do all of the screening of the tenants, background checks, criminal background checks. They're going to call up previous landlords to make sure they pay on time. They're going to make sure that they don't have evictions on their record. They're going to do credit checks. They're going to call up the employer and make sure that they actually have the job that they say they do. I remember when I was renting in a high-rise building in New York City, the owner of the building had to call my employer to verify that I actually worked there. So my boss got a phone call. Yes, indeed, he works here. That's something that that your property management company will do, or you should expect them to do. They're also going to collect rent checks. This is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle, right? They're going to make sure that the tenant pays on time. They are also going to field phone calls in the middle of the night if there's a clogged toilet. They'll send the maintenance guy, not you, especially if you're living 1,000 miles away. What, are you going to drive or fly there 1,000 miles to kind of deal with the property? No, 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 no. Another thing that they're going to do is they're going to know the local market. So they're going to know what rents are going for in that area. They're going to know that, well, this particular part of the neighborhood, we can actually get about $50 more than this particular part of the neighborhood. There are a whole host of things that property management is responsible for. They are especially responsible for dealing with the health department. If you are a rental investor, chances are you're probably in certain markets across the country where there are other investors. And where there are other investors, the city tries to make money off of investors. So they have their health department, right? Their code violation department. And those people ride around their little hybrid vehicles. I like to think of them as, police officers with speed traps. They know how to make money. They know how to catch flies in the ointment, so to speak. And that's what these health inspectors do. They're going to drive around and look for high grass in the yard, and they're going to issue you a letter, a citation warning. If you don't get that grass cut, it's going to be $30. Maybe there's branches on the roof from a thunderstorm. There's debris and branches in the yard. We're going to fine you $30. Maybe kids after a football game on a Friday night were eating McDonald's and they walked by your rental property and threw a bag of trash in your yard. And your tenant didn't see it, and the little hybrid vehicle, a health inspector drives by and sees the bag of trash and says, there's debris and trash in the yard, you better pick it up or we're going to fine you $300. Anyway, they try to make money off of investors. A good property management team usually has someone on staff who can handle that and who takes care of it. So I get those letters all the time. I'd never once have paid a fine. Never once. That's just part of doing business. But that's also why you should have a great property management team. So after a thunderstorm, they're going to go out and check on the property, make sure that the roof is intact and the gutters are fine and the branches are off the house and those sorts of things. That's what a great property management team will do. You should also insist that your property management team doesn't nickel and dime you. So the property management teams that I work with across the country, if there is a thunderstorm or there is some problem, they're not going to charge you a $70 site visit just to go to the house and check on things. No, 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 no. There are property management teams that will do that. Stay away from them. You should not be working with them. That's ridiculous. That's nickel and diming you. So if I've got 20 properties with one company, you better believe that they're going to drive by and check on my properties after a thunderstorm, or if they get a code violation letter in the mail because there's trash in the yard or something else, or there's a cracked window on a garage pane. I had one of that on my properties in Michigan. The garage, like one of the those little glass panes on the garage. There's a cracked piece of glass. We got a code violation letter in the mail. The property management team had already received the same letter, and they already took care of it. They went out, got the little glass pane replaced, and the health department was off of our backs. So that's the type of thing that a property management team will do for you. You should not be doing it yourself. So again, they're going to do all of the criminal background checks, employment verification. You want to find out what time of the month they're paying your rent. So most of my property management teams will pay rent to us, the owner, at the beginning of the month, sometimes the 15th of the month, and sometimes the 20th of the month. It kind of just depends on what part of the country you're in and what property management team you're working with. So they take care of everything, and they are so vitally important to the health and well-being of your passive income. Hire a good one and make sure that they will work for you, not against you. All right, number 7 on the list is to rent it out. Now get the property rented. Okay, you've rehabbed the property. You've got everything done and ready to go. And our properties, for instance, as soon as we are done and we're nearing that last coat of paint that's going to go on the property, the carpeting has just gone in, and our guys are in there vacuuming up the little pieces of extra carpet off the floor, getting the dust out of there, cleaning up, right? Cleaning up their materials and things like that. Your property management team should probably already have a sign in the yard ready for rent. It should probably be already listed on Craigslist or other places for rent. Maybe you do Section 8 housing, and that's something you should explore. They've got it listed on the Section 8 website. And they are ready to get it rented. Maybe they're already going through a pile of applications that they have from people who've already filled out applications because they want rental properties, and they've been waiting. So a lot of my property management teams have a waiting list. So they'll go through those and try to pair up the appropriate tenant with the types of properties they were looking for. Were they looking for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house? Great, we've got somebody. Let's get it rented. So that house should not sit vacant for very long. Our properties, our goal is that within about 2 weeks after that last coat of paint is on in the house, we've already got a deposit and we have a move-in date from a potential tenant. So get it rented fast. That's the name of the game. Now, I also, with my property management team, try to keep the rents very competitive so that they're always rented. Meaning if my competition is renting their houses for $750 a month, well, my property management team, I've instructed them to have it at $725 a month for rent. That way, if a potential tenant is looking at both of our properties, and my property is rehabbed and it looks great, and their property is maybe the same or even a little bit worse, why would they pay more, $25 more a month for that, our competition's house to rent, than mine? So I don't want to be greedy, and I want to make sure that everyone is taken care of in this. And so I'd much rather make $25 less per house, per rent, just to make sure that my tenant is constantly staying in the property, and that I won't have vacancies to worry about, and that I can get it rented quickly. I'd rather just eat $25 in order to not lose the $725 that I would lose per month in rent by having it sit vacant. All right, number 8 on our list is to take the equity out of the house. This is the snowball effect that I get so passionate about. This is how high-level investors are able to go from owning 1, 2 properties to 100 properties in a short amount of time. It's that snowball effect of owning rental properties. So if you're sitting back thinking, oh, great, I've got one house. I own one house now. I spend $50,000, and that's it. Now I'm going to have to wait another 5 years so I can buy another one. No, absolutely not. Now, with that $50,000 house, there are so many options for you to pull the equity out of that house and roll it into your second and third and fourth property. So that's exactly what I did. On the first property that I purchased, I think my total all-in cost was around $40,000 total. After I rehabbed it and everything was done, it's about $40,000, right? Well, the house was worth $55,000 after I was after the repair value. So it would appraise for about $55,000, but I spent $40,000. So what can you do with that equity? Or even if you didn't have the equity, even if it was only at $40,000, what could I do with that? Well, I could go to a local bank and say, hey, I would like to do a cash out refinance on this house. Will you let me put a mortgage now on it? It's free and clear. I own it free and clear. Can you put a mortgage on it and give me cash for the house to put a lien against the property? Sure, we will. You mean it's cash flowing? It's rented and rehabbed? Of course we will. Banks love to do cash out refinances. For some reason, they're much easier to work with on the back end after you've purchased the property and rehabbed the property and it's cash flowing than they are just to hand you money to buy it in the first place. I don't know. It's just how it works. So now I'm going to pull the equity out of that house. If I bought it for 40, maybe it's worth 50, maybe it's worth 55, the bank will typically give you 75% or even 80% of the value, meaning you're basically going to get back 40, roughly. So basically going to get back the money you just put into it. The bank is now going to put a lien against it and give you 40. What can you do with that 40? Buy your second property. Now, your rent is paying back that company, the bank that lent on that property. You're able to buy your second property. Now you own this one free and clear, right? Because the lien is against the first house. Then what do you do with this one? You do the same thing again. Pull the equity out and you snowball it. And before you know it, you'll have 10 properties in a short amount of time. That's how you do it. Now there are other options too. You could do a home equity line of credit on that first house. It's a little bit different than a cash out refinance. They'll extend to you a line of credit on the house, basically a blank check, zero balance. You can write a check for this next house using your home equity line of credit from your first house. You could go to a private lender and work with them and ask them for a loan against the first house in order to buy the second house. You know what else you could do? You could buy 10 houses free and clear, package them up together as one portfolio, and go to a commercial lender and ask for a commercial portfolio cash out refinance. There are so many different ways to then take that equity out of that house and roll it into your next properties. That's the beauty of using the equity to snowball your retirement, to snowball your legacy wealth building. That's the power of passive income right there. So you don't have to wait 5, 6, 7 years till you pay off that first house. No. Use that first house to buy your second house. Use the second house to buy your third house and keep it rolling and burning and churning. That's exactly how I've done it. That's exactly how we've been able to hit financial freedom in our family, is by doing this exact strategy. So again, you may have a better strategy. That's wonderful if you do. You may have a private lender who's willing to let you buy 10 properties at once. Great. That's fantastic. I'm telling you how I've done it. This is exactly how we did it, and I can tell you that it works. So there are a million different ways to slice this up. But again, this is how I've done it. So, and then finally, the last step in our whole process is to rinse and repeat. We just went through this whole process. It's the same process that now we'll rinse, and we'll do the exact same thing on the second property. And we'll do the same thing on the third property until you've got that financial freedom that we hope that you will hit and acquire. That's the whole goal of doing this. I'm telling you, there is no better vehicle in the world, and there's no better country in the world than the United States to buy rental properties and to build passive income. You go to other countries, there's all kinds of onerous laws that prohibit certain lending, certain borrowing, certain ownership. The United States lets you build incredible passive income, incredible net worth with the power of rental real estate. There is no better way, I'm telling you, than owning rental properties for long-term cash flow. It's fantastic. So if you have any questions, again, I know this was a long video, but we went through every step of everything that I've done in order to achieve financial freedom. If you want any more clarification on any particular issue, please leave your questions in the comment thread below and I'll answer them. We also have other videos here and other playlists that we dive a little bit deeper. So for instance, if you're interested in buying turnkey properties, we've got a whole playlist on how to do that. We've also got other playlists on how to do everything yourself, DIY. If you want to get your hands dirty with drywall, paint, carpet, nails, and a hammer, we have a playlist on that as well. We also want you to subscribe. Hit that big subscribe button right here. And we publish videos multiple times every week, and we would love to have you be a subscriber. It's totally free. And we try to put out great content to help you go out there and take action and become a real estate investor. No excuses.